left him with the kids in Italy to cheat in secret. He emptied the accounts and disappeared. I messed up. Like, pretty bad. And my husband didn't just find out. He tore me down in every way he possibly could and left me in shame. He took it too far, honestly. When my husband suggested we go to Italy for a family vacation, I said yes with so much excitement. I wasn't excited because I wanted to spend quality time with my husband and 2 children. No, I saw it as an opportunity to meet an old flame who moved to Europe some years ago, so I packed up with a lot of excitement. My husband handled everything else, and by the weekend we were in Italy. I spent the first 2 nights with my family, but even during that time I spent with my family, I felt restless. We were supposed to be there for just 2 weeks, so I needed to make my move as quickly as possible. George, my old flame, used to be my lover. We never put a name to it, but we used to hook up a lot, even after I got married. It only stopped because he traveled. But we had been talking online as of late. I had the perfect excuse. I told my husband that I wanted to take some alone time and see the museums and art galleries in Rome. He understood alone time because he sometimes would sit alone in a room to think, and he didn't like being disturbed when he wanted to be alone. But I didn't go to Rome. Instead, I went to Lyon in France. That was where George lived, but we didn't go to his house because, apparently, George was now in a relationship, and he lived with his girlfriend. I lodged in a hotel, and he came to meet me. It felt so good to see him again. I don't know what lie he told his girlfriend to stay away from the house for 3 whole days, because that was the amount of time he was with me. We partied during that time, hung out a lot, and slept together so many times. After our time together, I went back to my family in Italy. To me, I had pulled off a great heist. My husband had no clue about the real reason I left him and our children, and most importantly, he was happy to have me with him again. But about 2 days after I got back to my family in Italy, my husband got a text from a friend. It was a link to an Instagram post with the statement, "I thought you guys were in Italy." The Instagram post was a picture of George hanging out. I was with him, but he cropped me out of the picture, yet my right arm showed. And if it was my left arm, I would have been elated. My right arm had a tattoo. My husband and I got matching tattoos after he proposed to me. It was unique. The location on the post was a hotel in France, and my husband came to me and asked if I went to France. I should have known something was up when he asked that. Of course, my heart skipped a beat, but I tried to be calm as I denied it. I told him that I went to Rome, and that was where I spent all my time while I was away. He then showed me the picture of George and asked if that wasn't my arm poking out at the edge of the photo. I shrugged and told him that we weren't the only 2 people who had that kind of tattoo. I was panicking inside, but I tried to keep a cool demeanor. My husband was blunt. He didn't like cutting corners and was always up front with people. He was the kind of person that would confront you if there was a problem, and that would be the end of it. So after he said okay to my lies, I expected him to let it go. But he didn't do that. The next morning, my husband tapped me. He woke me from my sleep, and he didn't look happy at all. I wondered what was going on, so I asked. He was doing some accounting on our finances when he noticed how much money was missing from our joint account. He knew he hadn't done anything much since we arrived in Italy, and I'm the only other person who has access to the account. I was passive. I didn't see why he was making a big deal out of it. He told me that he wanted to know how much I spent in the days I was away, and exactly what I used the money for. I got pissed. I felt like he was harassing me. What kind of husband asks his wife for an account of how she spends money? But looking back, I wish I just did that, because it would have made him calm down and not dig further. Because his digging led to my downfall. I thought I had made sure that my husband couldn't know about my cheating, but his rage for my mismanagement of money turned to suspicion. He tried checking the transaction details of each of the transactions I did while I was in France. The first thing he took note of was the hotel room I paid for. That was what cut a major hole into the money in our joint account. I paid for a suite, and trust me, it was expensive. As though that wasn't annoying enough, he saw receipts of purchases in a bar and club, and that was just the surface of it. I was having breakfast with our children when he came to meet me and asked me if I went clubbing in Rome. I didn't answer. He asked our children to go to their room in the hotel we were staying in, and they left. He then called the name of the club and hotel I spent money on. Those were the places I spent money the most, so I guess he was looking at the numbers. I told him that the money had been spent, and if he needed me to replace it, then I would. He didn't like my passive attitude. He then reminded me that I told him that I was going to tour museums in Rome, not clubs and expensive hotels. I told him I didn't want to have that argument, and just as I got up to walk away, he muttered, "Wait a minute." He called the hotel's name. I didn't know what he was processing, but the next thing he said was that the hotel's name wasn't Italian, but French. I felt fear grip me. I just chuckled and asked him when he learned French and Italian to be able to differentiate between them. He began typing on his phone, and I asked him what he was doing. He didn't answer me, so I pulled the phone from him. I asked him again what he was doing, and I looked at his phone screen. He was typing the hotel's name on a search engine, but he hadn't clicked enter yet. My husband wasn't even joking anymore. He looked straight in my eyes and asked me what was going on. I didn't answer him. He then asked me where I went those 3 days. I didn't answer him. He didn't bother arguing with me. He just went to our room. I heard a ruckus, so I followed him. He was looking through my bags. And sure enough, he found the hotel's information card in my bag. The card also had the hotel's location, and it was in France. My husband looked at me. I saw that the walls were crashing down around me, so I tried to explain. I told him that it wasn't what he thought, and that I could tell him exactly what happened. He shook his head, asking me why I suddenly felt the need to communicate. My husband didn't mince his words. He asked me a simple question. "Are you cheating on me?" I scoffed and asked him how he could possibly think that. I denied it like I had rehearsed several times before. He then asked me to give him his phone. I didn't know what to do, so I slowly handed it to him. He told me that he needed to go out and that he would be back in the evening. I asked him where he was going, and he told me he needed some alone time. I wanted us to talk, but he didn't seem interested anymore. It's just funny and ironic. He was the one that wanted us to talk, and I didn't want to do that. But now the tables turned, and I became the one who wanted to talk. My husband left the house without saying another word to me. I was restless. My children, 7 and 5 years old respectively, asked where their father had gone, but I didn't know what to answer them. I was so worried and terrified about a lot of things. What was my husband going to do? But after a few minutes of panicking, I realized that my husband didn't actually know anything. Other than the fact that I lied about where I went for those 3 days, he didn't know anything else. He didn't know about George and me, and I felt reassured because of that. I just decided that I needed to keep it that way. My husband wasn't back by 9 at night, and it worried me, so I tried calling, but his number was not reachable. The next morning, my husband came back. I was so excited to see him, but he clearly wasn't happy to see me. I asked him what was wrong, and he gave me a simple and short answer. He said he needed some alone time, and he was back now. He called our children, and they both came to him. Right there, he announced that they were going sightseeing. Seeing how enthusiastic he was about taking us out, I figured he had forgotten about the whole issue. After all, you can only suspect someone of something if it's something you think they are capable of. And he didn't know that I had ever cheated on him, so he didn't even suspect it. Or so I thought. I didn't want to go, but I needed to keep up the lovely family charade so he wouldn't be suspicious of anything. So I got dressed, he carried a little backpack of essentials, and we all went out. Our children were so happy, but I wasn't really in the mood for it. I just wanted to have fun, and sightseeing wasn't my definition of fun. After about 1 hour, I told my husband that I was tired and that I would wait in a restaurant for them while they did all their sightseeing. He agreed, telling me that they would come meet up with me when they were done. I waited in that restaurant till it was late and dark. I tried calling my husband, but his phone was off. I was so worried that I walked around looking for them and calling out their names. I started panicking, but then I thought that they must have gone back to our hotel. So I headed to the hotel, but they weren't there. I was so confused and lost. I thought of reporting to the police and so many other things. We were in a country far away from our home, and I couldn't find my husband and children. I was terrified. I stayed up all night thinking they would come back, but by the next morning, they still weren't back. I asked for directions to the police station, and I made a complaint. They asked me to exercise patience while they tried looking for my family. I gave them all the details they needed. The whole day went by in a blur. I was worried throughout, and the next morning the police visited me and told me that my husband and children were not in the country. I didn't understand what they meant, so I asked for clarification. They told me that my husband and children took a flight out of Italy back home the day we went sightseeing. I couldn't believe it. I told them that they were wrong. They told me that they weren't, and that I should call someone back home to check. I called my neighbor, and she confirmed that my husband and children were back home, and she heard that I would come back later. I just thanked her and ended the call. I was looking like a foolish person to the police, because why in the world would my husband abandon me in Italy? I tried to call several times, but he still wasn't reachable. I think he blocked me from calling him. I could understand what was going on. He left Italy and didn't bother carrying the clothes we came with. I was so angry, and I decided that I was going to go back home the next day. I packed all the bags, raging with fury. I told myself that my husband better have a good explanation for doing what he did, or else all hell was going to break loose. While packing, I noticed that my passport was missing. I couldn't find it. It was supposed to be in the drawers, alongside my husband's and children's passports. I panicked, thinking that they mistakenly carried my passport. I called my husband again, but he still didn't pick up. So I called our neighbor, telling her that I couldn't reach my husband, and asked her to take her phone over to my husband. I heard her knock and exchange pleasantries with my husband before telling him that I wanted to speak with him. I heard him say hello, and I knew he had taken the phone. I first lost my temper, asking him what kind of stupid game he was playing. He told me that he wasn't playing any games. He sounded so chill and relaxed that it made me very angry. I asked him how he could abandon me in Italy without a single word, and he just laughed and said, "I'll check on it. Okay, bye." Then he ended the call. I had no clue what was happening. What was he talking about? I just guessed that he didn't want to talk about it in front of our neighbor. While I was lost in thought, I got a call from my husband. He wasn't sounding relaxed anymore. His tone was more serious and his voice was deeper. He told me that I had some nerve calling him. I lost it, asking him if he had gone mad. He abandoned me in Italy, and he was sounding like I was the one at fault. He laughed and told me that he didn't abandon me. He said I had a family in Europe, George, so I should go be with him. I think I stopped breathing for a few seconds after he said that, but I quickly recovered and asked what nonsense he was spewing. He laughed and asked me why I was denying something that was so obvious. He told me he went to see George the day he left the hotel in Italy. I paused when he said that, but I couldn't be caught just like that, so I pretended. I asked him who George was. He shouted through the phone, telling me to stop taking him for a fool. He said he knows everything. He knew that I went to see George in France, and that George and I had been with each other before we got married, and even some time after. I couldn't speak. My husband continued, telling me that the first thing he did when he got back was a paternity test for our 2 children. Luckily, they were both his, but he didn't want to see me anywhere near him and them anymore. I told him that he was being rash, and that he should calm down. I told him that we'd talk when I got back. He laughed and told me, "Good luck trying to get back without your passport." After that, he ended the call. I couldn't believe it. He took my passport on purpose. He knew about George. I called George immediately, but he didn't pick up. I called him a few more times before he finally answered and asked me why I was calling. I asked him why he didn't tell me that my husband came to meet him and, most importantly, how my husband found him. He told me he didn't know, stating that my husband just showed up in front of his house. I asked him what he told my husband, and he said that he told him everything. I shouted in horror. How could he do this to me? I was frustrated. George said my husband threatened to barge in and tell his girlfriend about his infidelity if he didn't tell the truth. I ended the call, completely wrecked. I grabbed my hair, thinking of what to do, but not a single thought crossed my mind. I needed to go back home and make everything right. I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I knew that staying in Italy any longer wasn't going to help my marriage. I sent my husband so many messages, pleading for him to send me my passport so I could come back home. But he didn't answer any of my messages. I got frustrated, so I went to the embassy. It was quite an ordeal. I was required to show proof of a travel plan, which in my case was a plane ticket, so I needed to buy a plane ticket. But when I tried to buy one, I realized that there was no money in the joint account my husband and I shared. I was so angry. All that money, gone? How? I tried calling my husband, but he didn't pick up. He had removed all the money there. He was the only one who could. I checked our savings account as well, but there was nothing there either. My husband had put me in a very difficult situation. I had to pay from my personal account, which didn't have much. Anyways, I was able to get new travel documents in a few days, and I went home. But when I got to the house, there was no one home. I couldn't even get in because it was locked. My husband's car wasn't in the driveway. I tried calling, but my husband still wasn't answering my calls. I then got a text from him. Hope George's place has a guest house because I don't think his girlfriend likes sharing. My husband was out to frustrate me. I guess he didn't expect that I'd be back so soon without my passport and without access to the money in our joint account and savings account. I was lucky to have enough money in my personal account. If not, I would have been stranded in Italy. But even though I was back home, I was stranded. My husband had disappeared with our children, and I was locked out of the house. I tried calling again and again, but it was pointless. I was stranded. I sat in front of our house with my bags around me. I didn't know where to go. After hours of sitting there, it was getting late, and that was when my neighbor was leaving her house. She saw me there and asked if my family was moving out of the house because she saw my husband and children parking some things before they left the previous day. I was so confused, but I didn't want her to know that we were having problems, so I told her that we were just taking some time away from the house. I wanted to ask if I could keep my bags in her house and come get them later, but she had driven away by then. I checked online and saw that my husband's sister had just made a post on her story. She was saying that her brother, my husband, was going through a betrayal, and that everyone should say a prayer for him. She was being very dramatic. She always was. I called her, and she picked up immediately. She asked what I wanted, asking if I hadn't ruined her family enough already. I tried to calm her down and ask if she knew where my husband was, but she just ended the call on me. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't afford going anywhere else. I had spent all I had on the plane ticket from Italy. Now I was stuck in front of our house. I had to sleep on the porch that night. The next morning I called my mom and asked her to send some money for me. She asked what I wanted it for, and I just pleaded because I couldn't exactly tell her that I couldn't afford to come to her place, because my husband drained all our accounts because I cheated on him. She said she would send me the money, but after the call, my phone died. I nearly fainted in frustration. I went to the bus station and took a bus to my mother's house. I paid with my card. On getting to my mother's house, she had the most bitter expression on her face when she opened the door and saw that it was me. I didn't know why she was so angry. By the time I was in the living room, she threw an envelope at me asking, "What is the meaning of this?" I opened it, and it was divorce papers. My husband had sent divorce papers to my mother's house. That was his own way of exposing me to my mother, because she would definitely ask why we were getting divorced. I have gone from one difficult situation to another, and it's making me feel overwhelmed. I know I was wrong. I am sorry that I cheated, but this is all just too much. All of this is just taking things too far. He is torturing me. Update. After my mother learned of the reason my husband wanted to get divorced, she slapped me and said, "I thought I raised you better than that." I feel so ashamed. I don't know what to do. The divorce was done in what feels like the blink of an eye. He kept custody of the children, and I am still sleeping on my mother's couch. My mother still isn't talking to me. She says that I embarrassed her. And I don't blame her, because my now ex-husband didn't let our divorce be a quiet and subtle one. He made sure that everyone around us knew that we were getting divorced and that it was my fault. And he did it in very subtle ways. I can't help stalking him on social media, and it's like he knows I'm stalking him, because the caption of every single post seems targeted at me. He posted a picture of him with our children at the beach. They looked so happy. The caption was, "Life is better without baggage." And to show just how petty he was, instead of him deleting my Netflix profile name, he changed it to Lucas's side piece. And whenever I wanted to talk to my children on the phone, it was always a piece of work. He made everything so difficult for me. I know he has every right to hate me, but there should be a limit to how far you would go with punishment. It makes me wonder if he ever loved me at all, because he seems too eager to make my life a living hell.